This video covers notes 8.1 over correlation coefficient. So, a scatter plot is a type of plot or diagram using points to display values for two variables. A linear trend line, drawn without technology, also known as a line of best fit when using technology, can be used to simplify data points that resemble a line. So on this first graph, there's not really a number on it, but on this first example, we can draw a line that gives us 2 points. We're trying to hit as many points as possible. Now I have a specific line that I'm going to try to hit so that my numbers will work with your numbers. So this one, as we can see, doesn't hit all of my points, and that's okay. Our lines are going to look a little differently for some of these things because we're talking about real world data, and unless you want to plug in all of these points, which I don't, and I know you probably don't, then we're just going to draw a trend line. We're going to use a couple of points in our trend line, and we're going to move on, and it's going to be okay. So with the points used, we're going to use the point 0, 0.8, and we'll use this one. So this is the point 18, 1.05. And I am just picking these because they fit on that line. If you drew your line a little differently, you would follow the same steps as me, but you would use a couple of different points. Okay, so in order to find this line of best fit down here, I'm going to come over to my calculator. So if you don't have a calculator, you want to grab one. So I'm going to go to Stat Edit, and I'm going to enter my x's, just like we've been doing for the past couple units. X's in L1 and Y's 0.8 and 1.05 in L2. So I'm plugging this in, making this Stat Edit table in my calculator look just like my paper. Stat Calc 4. And I can see my pretty ugly equation. So that would be 0.01x plus 0.8 is my line of best fit. Okay. So on this next trend line, I'm going to use some points again. I'm trying to go through as many of these points as I can. So let's say we hit this point, so this is the point -8.1, and I hit that one next, so -4.4. So my points used, you can just draw an arrow because why else would we rewrite that? So in Stat Edit, I plug in my x's, -8 and -4, and my y's of 1 and 4. And I click Stat, scroll to Calc, option 4. And my line of best fit is 0.75x plus 7, and that all comes from the calculator. Now, there is such a thing as correlation. Correlation tells us how two data sets relate to one another. If there's correlation, then there is some sort of relationship. So correlation, if you were to draw a line between these, the type of correlation is kind of the same thing as slope. So if I were to draw a line through this, what type of slope would it have? Well, it would have a negative slope, so this would have a negative correlation. So the next one, if I were to draw a line through it, it would have a positive correlation. Now, the third one, I kind of have a weird in between, like I could go down, I could go up, I could go across, I could go up and down. And so this would mean that there is no correlation. And then if it looks like it fits onto something nice but doesn't go in a straight line, that is a nonlinear correlation, meaning it is related but not in a linear fashion. So mostly negative, mostly positive. It looks like someone sneezed all over the graph, so this is no correlation because it's just everywhere and yucky. And then this one has a correlation that is not in a line. So the equation of a line can be written in slope-intercept form. Remember, that's y equals mx plus b. And the correlation coefficient is the r value. So in order to see the R value, you must turn it on, okay? So the easiest way, there's a couple different ways to turn it on, but we're going to show you the easiest way. So we're going to press the mode button, which is right here by quit. So we're going to hit the mode button, and we're going to hit the up arrow 3 times. 1, 2, 3. So 1, 2, 3. Now we see something that says Stat Diagnostics. We want to scroll and click enter, so that the on button is highlighted. So you can't just hover over it, you have to hover and click enter. So after you hit up, 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 you're going to have to hit right and enter. That's a very important piece that is not in these notes. So it needs to look like this in step 2. So make sure it does. And then to return to home, we click second quit. Now we can't see any immediate changes, but you will notice if you have Stat Calc 4, I now have some extra things down below, so we'll talk about that in a little bit. So correlation, the way that the calculator gives it to us, it tells me these R values here from my equation. So we're still going to put things in stat. We're still going to do Stat Calc 4, but this time it's going to give us a little bit more info. So this R value is what we're looking at, not R squared, but R. So the closer R is to 1 or -1, the better the fit. Positive or negative doesn't matter, it's 1. So think about 1 as in like 100%. Everything fits perfectly. So we have a scale here. If R is -1, there's a perfect negative correlation. If it's -0.8, it's pretty strong, but still negative. And then this is a weak negative, no correlation. We've already talked about it. Looks like it's all over the graph. Weak positive, meaning it's going more in a positive direction, but it is not strictly positive, it's kind of weak. A strong positive, meaning that it's in a positive frame of reference, but it's not perfect. And then a perfect positive because R is 1. So we will look at the foldable in a separate video. So this table shows the heights and lengths of several parallelograms. So we are going to plug this into StatEdit and look at that R value. Remember, we set up that R value by clicking mode, scrolling up, and turning this on. So we've already turned this on, but that is something you will have to do every time. So we're going to go back to StatEdit. We still have a table, so I'm still going to plug these things in. If you need to pause to plug these in, that's totally fine. And then I'm going to click Stat, scroll to Calc, option 4. These steps are still the same, but this time they are talking about the correlation. So it asks what does the correlation coefficient for this data indicate? So my correlation coefficient is at R value. I don't really know why it's an R value, why they couldn't have put C. I have no idea, but it is an R value. So my R value is -0.872. Now when I look at this, the negative means it can't be A or B because those words have, or those answer choices have positive in it. So it can't be a positive correlation. It is negative. Now -0.8 is close to -1, which means it is a strong negative correlation. Remember, weak negative correlation is like -0.3. Strong is anything from like -0.6 to -0.9. Okay, weak is -0.3 to -0.5. Okay, so this is really close to 1. If we rounded that, it'd be like -0.9, which is almost -1. So very close there. So we're going to look at 3 more examples. So we have a table showing the relationship between the weight of a panda and its age. So I'm going to come back to StatEdit and I'm going to type in my table. Pause if you need extra time to type before we move on so you're not left behind. So I'm going to go Stat Calc 4. And they ask the data appears to follow a blank. So my R value here is 0.996. So that is a strong positive. So strong is how close is it to 1, positive is the number positive or negative. Then our line of best fit, round to the nearest hundredth. So hundredth is 2 numbers after the decimal. So A is 5.10x, and then B is negative 3.18 when rounded. Then they ask us to take the equation in this part and give the approximate weight of a 7-month-old panda. So one thing that I can do is whenever we click StatCalc 4, I'm going to do these steps again. So if I go StatCalc 4, there is an option here to store your equation into Y1 to make this part where they are asking us to not only find the equation but do something with it, to make that easier. So what I'm going to do is come down here to where it says store. So I'm going to write these steps out for you. So to store something, you are going to click the variables button, variables, scroll right to Y variable, and then click enter 2 times. So enter, enter. Now what this is going to do is this is going to take my equation and store it into Y equals. So I'm going to go ahead and click enter. Now this does not look any different, but when I go to Y equals, that really ugly equation is already stored for me. So for part C, to determine this weight, 7 months old is an X value. So I'm going to look at the table. So I'm going to click second table. When X is 7, Y is 32.5 pounds. Now, alternatively, you could take X of 7 there and plug that in, but it's a little bit faster to go through the store. It's just more steps that you got to remember. So 2 more problems. We have a quick stat edit, and they're asking for the R value, so I am going to clear these out. Remember, you can pause this if you need more time. But I'm going to click StatCalc 4. I don't need to store this because they're not asking me to do anything with the equation. So my R value is 0.979. That's really 980. So this is very strong because it's close to 1. Very close to 1. And it is a positive number. Okay, so one last example on this. We have a stat edit. So StatCalc 4. And my R value is negative 0.444. So that is a negative number, so it's got to be A or B. And it is a smaller number, so that is weak. It's considered weak if it's not like 0.6, 0.7 or above.